coming up in a few minutes, and he's already in the queue, we have author Mike Love. He was scheduled before, and there was, for some reason, he wasn't able to be on the show. But he wrote a very, very interesting book called Confessions of a Recovering Stupid Male, Creating Loving Relationships that will last a lifetime. And, it's always, transparency is always difficult, whether you're an author or whether you're relationship and anger management coaches, whoever, if you have an audience, transparency can be very difficult. But Mike was very forthcoming in this book and very transparent, and I like that. I like that in people, and I especially like it in author, because now you're really putting yourself out there. So I'm going to bring him on the air. Hi, Mike. Are you there?
Yes, I am. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great.
Well, Jim and I are very happy to have you on together again, and I was telling people a little bit about your book.
Well, it's good to be on your air as well. The book is about relationships. A lot of it has to do with some of the things that I had to work out in my own relationship with my wife, now almost 27 years into it. We had a lot of issues at the beginning. I had a lot of growing up to do. I had a lot of issues to deal with, and that's something that I was able to do in order to save our marriage. And part of the healing, I think, was writing the book and wanting to help other couples that may be in similar situations that I was in.
I don't know if you heard the part where I said I appreciated your transparency, because I think when you write a book like this, that's important. I want to tell everybody, close to the beginning of your book, there's a part where you say, why are men the way they are? I grew up in an era where men were men. We learned quickly that big boys don't cry and that a man doesn't show his feelings lest he be ridiculed as a wimp. We idolized tough guys like John Wayne, Robert Redford, Paul Newman, and Clint Eastwood. They looked like men, fought like men, drank like men, and they were strong and stoic. And in the end, they always got the girl. If you wanted to be cool, you had to emulate your idols. In high school, I wanted to hang out with the cool guys. The ones who were cool always got the cute chicks. When you went on a date with a girl, you didn't dare show your true feelings for fear that she might think of you as unmanly. It seemed the cool guys scored with not just one but several chicks. The ultimate goal, of course, was to score with a girl and go all the way. Most of us didn't score, but we boasted that we did anyway, just to look good in front of our peers. For those of us who went to college in the 1970s, there were many of us who went through the party experience that the movie Animal House illustrated. It was a time of sex, drugs, and rock and roll, with one continuous party after another, until you found yourself on academic probation, and then you either flunked out or got your grades up. And if you were fortunate enough to survive that period, you graduated. Then it was time to find employment. Those who didn't go to college went out looking for work after high school. If you had the right connections, you could get a nice position with the company, while others went to trade schools and learned a specialized skill in their chosen field. Eventually, for some of us, we dated, fell in love, got married, and started families. Then we lived happily ever after, right? Not necessarily. All of a sudden, reality bites you as the bills start coming in, mortgage or rent comes due, as does utilities, phone, food, and heating bills, and if babies are involved, medical debts. There are a lot of people listening to the show that can relate to this period of in their lives. What was especially troubling for you during this period?
I think trying to be somebody I wasn't. I mean, in a way, I wanted to be the person who I was, who was frank and honest, could share my feelings, just kind of be the person I truly am. But at the same time, I had to, try to be Mr. Macho and try to compete against the other guys that are competing for the woman that you're after. It was kind of like, I'm on the one hand, I have to be this way so I can try to get this girl. On the other hand, is I felt like I was cheating myself because I couldn't be who I really was.
Well, do you think that has changed much from then until now?
I think there's a lot of changing going on. It's having to be that way. I think a lot of it has to do, and I think it's a good thing, was the women's movement of the 70s. I even see a lot of changes from the 1980s till now in how I dated, or was treated women and stuff. And I never treated them disrespectfully in the sense of treating them like, a second-class citizen, but, you're still put into this mindset that, well, this is the way it is, I got to get this woman in order to feel complete, and once I get this woman, then we can live happily ever after, and she can, cook my meals, pick up after me, do my laundry, so on and so forth, and everything's going to be fine. And it's not that way anymore, and I'm really glad that it's not that way, because we're finally realizing, that we're people who need to find love within ourselves so we can complete ourselves and make the relationship even more so. But that has to do with equality, and it has to do with serving one another.
How old were you when you met your wife?
How old was I when I met her?
Mhm.
Well, the second time I was 29, and it was my last quarter in college before I graduated.
And how long after you met her did you get married?
About a year after. We lived together for a year before we got married.
Everybody, it's funny. Most people, or a lot of people, I should say, their expectation of what comes later is based on what came first. And, the first year, and, as a relationship coach and a behaviorist, and a lot of my colleagues and people in the profession will tell people, what the first year is like is no indication that every year after that is going to be the same, because at first everything is very new and very exciting and very unique and very different. And then after that year, and for some people it's a little longer, and for some people it's a little shorter, things change as I think things calm down, settle down, people find their way with each other. Did that happen for you, or was there turmoil from the beginning, or what happened?
Well, once we moved in together, we got to kind of see each other the way we truly were. I mean, there was those rose-colored glasses that we both wore, but at the same time, she got to start seeing me in my immature, self-centered, you're here to serve me, you're here to be my sex kitten whenever I want it and all this, and she wasn't buying into that, and I'm so glad that she didn't, but that infuriated me, and so there would be arguments and, be frustration on her part, and I'm real honest that even though when we lived together that she still wanted to marry me after seeing what I was like. So I think there are rose-colored glasses, and I think each couple is going to have them on a little bit longer, a little bit less than other couples. But I think that's going to start. You start getting to see who the other person really is, and that's when the problems begin.
I think that to some degree, Yes. I think that for a lot of people, the expectations are way ahead of the realities. Because at first, when people get together, there is this sort of mutual agreement that they don't want to be alone, and I think things start to sort of go from there. But I also think that back in the 70s and the 80s, and even in the 90s, and occasionally even now, I talk about multi-generational belief systems, and when you talked about, you had these expectations that she was going to pick up your clothes, and sort of like the kind of Dick Van Dyke Show kind of thing, more of a quasi-subordinate / wife, and that was something that most people had those expectations, just based on the mores of the times and stuff. And then later on, when people had the opportunity to live together before, they actually inked the commitment, things were a little different, because in the old days there was the meeting, the courtship, the marriage, and that was it. And now it's like the meeting, the courtship, the living together, and then at some point making the decision to ink the commitment. At what point, well, do you have any kids? I guess I want to ask you that first. Do you have kids?
I have 2 grown boys, and they're nothing like me in that respect. Thank you.
Well, I don't know. You seem to have learned several life lessons along the way. So, that makes you a smart dad.
Recovering dad.
A recovering dad. Okay. A recovering dad. I like the book, The Recovering Stupid Male. I'm going to let Jim ask you some questions, because he's looking at this from male point of view.
Well, I was actually just curious to imagine if there's going to be a sequel written by a woman about the recovering stupid female, because I know they're in the generation that I grew up in, of course, there was sort of an unwritten rule that the man would be the provider and the woman would be the homemaker, and roles have changed dramatically in the last, especially the last generation. But a lot of women that are in my age group find themselves single and having to make a living in ways that they had never anticipated. It's not that they're uneducated; it's just that they didn't spend time in the workforce, and they didn't anticipate the life they have now. But a lot of there are a lot of anger issues, I think, on both sides of the gender aisle that have never been resolved, and I think that's a big part of it, is that people are clinging to their prior roles and not understanding that there may be new roles that the man may be the homemaker, the woman may be the breadwinner, and we can't, regardless of what age we are, we can't just assume that those are going to be the roles for the rest of our lives.
Well, that's absolutely correct. I totally agree with that.
I'm moving on a little bit in the book now, where you say our false beliefs about anger, because anger plays a role in anger sometimes plays an overwhelming role in some relationships, but you say the following beliefs may have been planted in our psyche as we're growing up, which is that multi-generational belief system, either to keep us in line or were modeled by others to make us feel bad about our behavior. Either way, many of us have adopted these beliefs as our own, passing them on to the next generation. It's not okay to get angry. Nice people don't get angry. Anger is sinful and should never be expressed. If I get angry, I'll lose control and embarrass myself or my caregivers. That's why I shouldn't feel angry. People will leave me if I get angry at them, fear of abandonment. Or we may believe other people should feel angry towards me. If others get angry with me, I must have done something wrong. This means I must be a bad person. If someone gets angry with me, I must have made them feel that way, and I'm responsible for fixing their feelings. Again, I must be a bad person. If I'm feeling angry, someone else made me feel that way, and that person is responsible for fixing my feelings. The perceived offender is considered the bad person. If I feel angry at someone, a partner, spouse, parent, friend, child, the relationship is over and that person has to leave. If I feel angry at that person, I should punish that person mentally, emotionally, or physically for making me feel angry. If I feel angry at someone, that person has to change what he or she is doing so that I don't feel angry anymore. It's their fault I'm angry. If I feel angry, I have to hit someone or break something. If I feel angry, I have to shout or scream at someone, whether they are the alleged offender or not. If I feel angry at someone, it means I don't love him or her anymore. Conditional love. If someone gets angry with me, it means that person doesn't love me anymore. Again, unconditional love and low self-image. And, you know, what you said in the book was like it basically all comes down to our guilt-induced. How did this, you know, play into your life at this point in time?
Well, I know that in growing up myself that there's the anger that went on in my own with my own parents and stuff was a role model, unfortunately, for me. And I think a lot of us of that generation. And unfortunately, I see a lot of the what you just described. People are angry now that they're blaming other people for their condition or their issues and not taking responsibility for themselves and not having, we'll say, like an assertive response toward their anger toward others. As for me, I think that was probably the biggest issue I had to deal with was my anger and how I was using it just hurting people, not hurting people physically, but hurting people emotionally or mentally and so forth, and having to really, you know, start working on my own issues regarding that. I'm still in the process of learning. I think I've come a long way, but I've yet to come, you know, I've still got a long way to go. So, but I think the important thing is I have, as well as many other people, have dealt with their issues in whether it's in therapy or coaching or anything else to have a proper way of dealing with your anger rather than breaking things, hurting people, blaming people for others, things that you need to take care of yourself.
I know in the book you say that, well, actually 2006 through 2008 were pretty rough years for you because friends and people and relatives, people you were close to, died. How did that, I know it was hard, when you talk about how hard it was for you when one of your closest friends died who was 4 months younger than you. How did these deaths start to, you know, collectively take a toll on you?
Well, it was a reality check, an awakening, you know, because you're thinking, well, you know, life is going to be like this, la, 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 you know, live happily ever after. When we're 60 or 70, we'll still get together with the friends we had in our 20s and 30s, and we'll be planning these things. Well, that's, you know, nice to think about, but sometimes reality bites and a friend or a loved one dies. You know, they have a heart attack or they were killed in an accident, what have you. And so we think, well, that's not fair. Well, you know, life is what it is, and we have to adapt to it. So, you know, for me, it was a wake-up call to realize, well, I may not be here tomorrow, or my wife may not be here tomorrow. And so what am I going to do today to make it even more, more here and now, and share the feelings I really do have for her? I love her very much. How come I'm not saying it? How come I'm causing more ego dramas and grief when I should be saying I really love you, And so for me, it was a wake-up call to look at life that, what all you have is right now. And what you do with right now will affect tomorrow. You don't have yesterday. Yesterday's gone. All you have is right now. And you don't know when your last breath will be. So for me, it's looking like, instead of looking way ahead into the future, and, you can make plans for the future, but at the same time realize, well, right now is what's going to create the future.
You talk about coping with infidelity, and you talk about your friend and how the internet can impact on a relationship. How did what happened to your friend have any impacts on you?
Well, what happened to my friend, just to kind of share the background, and he was one of them that died, by the way. He found out of nowhere. I mean, it was like he thought, well, everything's going well with us. They've been married a lot more longer than we had, and so everything's going well. And when I was having my own issues with my wife, I would talk with him, get some shared ideas from him to help me in our relationship. And out of nowhere, he finds out that his wife's been on the internet, I guess they call it cyber cheating, and then I'm trying to remember now, but had an affair and so forth, and that it just totally damaged him. And I think this is where empathy comes in. Even though I may not have experienced it myself, I experienced what he was going through, and spent several hours with him at different periods of time, and they were able to work it out and have a relationship that many people envied after that. But it was more of a he realized there were some things he was doing that he was not giving her attention and love and all that, because he was so caught up into, here again, the macho image that I got to take care of my wife and family by working and bringing in the money and so forth, and have a house over our heads and so forth. And so, he didn't realize that he wasn't giving her the love, the attention that she needed. And he learned the hard way, and they both learned. They learned a big lesson. And for me, it taught me that I need to give my wife more attention, because the way we were going, I wouldn't blame her a bit if she wanted to have an affair, but which never happened. But that in itself was a wake-up call. What happened with somebody I loved.
How are since you say you're recovering, how are things with you and your wife now, and how does she feel about the book?
Well, she wrote the foreword to the book, and I was real honored that she volunteered to do that. And she has read the book, and she really liked it. She thinks that, a lot of, because before I would, read self-help books to try to get better, but I wasn't getting better. But it seemed like a lot of healing went into this book while I was writing it. As far as our relationship now, I've got to say that it's probably the best it's ever been, and part of that had to do with last fall. We found out that she needed to have open heart surgery, and that's something that life doesn't always tell you that's going to happen, and then it happens. And so for the next 2-3 months after the surgery, I took time off with her and help her recuperate, take her to doctor appointments and whatnot. And so we got to be closer. And, you know, it's like you don't know what you have until it's gone. And, I mean, it may not seem serious, but people do die from heart surgeries. And so I'm just thankful that she pulled through and she's back to normal again. But it helped our relationship immensely because we became tighter than we've ever had before. And I think because of that, you know, today we're light years from where we've ever been, and we're continuing to go forward in that respect.
Very interesting book, everybody. Mike, you probably haven't listened to our show before, but Jim and I started this show to, you know, inform and educate and shamelessly promote people's works and services. So now would be the time for you to shamelessly promote your book. Tell people the title again and where they can find it and how they can contact you.
Okay. Yeah, you can get it at Amazon. You can get it on Barnes & Noble. Let's see. I think it's on eBay, and I think my wife said she saw it on eBay. And you can also get it at your local bookstores, I believe. I do have a website you can go to. It's oneloverising.com, and if you want to get it through me, I'll send you an autographed copy of the book. It's good for, you know, those that are in relationship troubles. It's also good for those that aren't and can learn the pitfalls that can happen to anybody. And I'm doing radio interviews all the time, so life is good.
You know what? That's what you want to hear from a person in recovery, that life is good, because that means they're happy. I want to tell everybody, we've been talking to author Mike Love tonight, and his book is Confessions of a Recovering Stupid Male, Creating Loving Relationships That Will Last a Lifetime. It's a good read, and it's also a good reference source. So thank you so much for being on the show tonight, Mike, and Jim and I wish you the best with the book and with your recovery.
Well, thank you very much. I've really enjoyed being on your show and talking with you too, and best of love and luck for you as well.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Have a good evening.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.